there, Skeleton Key here. Welcome back to my channel. And today I want to talk about middle grade March. And this video, like pretty much all of my videos for a little while here, this one is going to be pretty disjointed. I have books squirreled away all over the house, so like right now, I want to talk about my middle grade March TBR, but I have 3 books here covering 2 prompts. And so, yeah. But middle grade March is a month-long readathon in March that has become an annual tradition. And even though I really don't consider myself much of a middle grade reader, I do somehow have a fair amount of middle grade books. And some of them will be rereads, and some of them I've never read before. Some of them are things that everyone else read in their childhoods, and I never did. So I'm like, yeah, I want to see what all the fuss is about. And this is a fun, light change of pace for me. It gives me a little bit of a breather from things like Tender as the Flesh, which we won't talk about on this video because, wow, it's kind of intense. It is not for children at all. I'm just gonna talk a little bit about some of the things that I'm reading. The group read, of course, is Pony by Palacio, I believe is the author's name. It's initials and Palacio, and I don't have a copy yet. I have a hold on that at the library, and I think I will actually get that before March is over. Fingers crossed. I have actually 2 books picked out for one of the prompts, and that prompt is to read a book that is older than you, which is harder for some of us. I do happen to have actually quite a few middle grade books that are older than I am. I may get to this one by the end of February, but if I don't, I'll just put it on my March reading list, and that is Fairweather by Richard Peck, who is one of my favorite authors when I was a middle grader. So Richard Peck is the celebrated author of more than 25 novels, and he's won lots of things. Oh, he won a Newbery for A Long Way from Chicago, which I have never read. But he's probably best known for his Blossom Culp books. I remember The Ghosts Belong to Me, The Ghosts I've Been. I just absolutely loved those books. And I found out there was one that was not apparently in my school library, or wasn't on the, the Scholastic order form. So there's one more book in that series that I haven't read, so I need to find a copy of that someday and read that for middle grade March. And this, actually, maybe I should check and make sure that this one is older than I am, because yeah, he had a long career. And no, this is not older than I am by quite a lot. This is from 2001. All right. So this is actually, maybe that's why I never heard of it when I was a kid. So actually, I don't think this will fit any of the prompts. So never mind. Who knows? Maybe I'll end up reading this in February anyway. But this does appear to be a middle grade book. And it takes place in 1893 at the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago. That's what you see there. So, what I will be reading for the older than me, and I know this one is older than I am, and this is Persimmon Creek, and this is by Nellie Page Carter, and is illustrated by Alice Cady, or Cady? I don't know. It's spelled Caddy. And so this was discarded by the Warren Library. And yeah, apparently the Warren Public Library was in Warren, Pennsylvania. This is from 1938, and this book is kind of important to me, and I spent a fair amount of money on it, like over $100, because this is actually a pretty rare book, and I did not know this at the time, but when I was a young girl, like 7 or 8 years old, she was still alive, and she was living just down the street from me. I never met her, and I don't even know exactly which house she lived in, but she lived within walking distance of my house. And just what I've read about her, she sounds like she would have been fascinating. And I really regret that I never got to meet her when she was alive. And now, she was white, so this is not Own Voices, but the protagonists are 2 black children. And Persimmon Creek is sort of a fictionalized version of an actual black community in rural Missouri near the town I grew up in. And apparently she was accepted into that community, and they helped her with dialect, because and that will probably make it a little bit of a challenge to read, because there's a lot of dialect in this book. So to my modern ears, this is gonna probably be a little cringe. Probably more than a little cringe. Apparently for the early 20th century, she was pretty woke. That's the impression I get. Like I said, I never met her, and I've just read articles about her. But I was able to track down copies of all of her books, and I've only read one of them so far. She didn't write very many, but this was her first book, and it is definitely older than I am. And continuing on the hometown theme, for the prompt to read a book with 5 or more words in the title, I give you The True Story of Jim the Wonder Dog. And this is by Marty Rhodes Figley, who is apparently a children's author. She is the author of 17 books for young readers, including Emily and Carlo, a book about Emily Dickinson's dog. Emily Dickinson's dog. And this is a fairly recent book. This is from 2017. And there's another new book came out about the same time that my friend Nancy Daly actually wrote. So I do need to track down one of those. But this, I saw a copy of this for sale online. I was like, oh, hey, I want to read that. There is another book, I think it's just called Jim the Wonder Dog. And it's from the early 20th century. And I did read that. It's not a middle grade book. This is a kid's book. And it was interesting. I don't recommend it. It was a product of its time. I really hate that phrase. It usually feels like a major cop-out to me. Because there's a lot of racism, there's a lot of misogyny, there's a lot of animal abuse. It's just, and I particularly disliked that the conceit of the book was that it was first person from Jim's point of view. Jim the Wonder Dog was a real dog. A Llewellyn setter, I believe. Does this say? Llewellyn English setter. And he died before my time, but I have visited his grave, and I have visited his park, and I think he's got a museum now too. A lot of sources have confirmed that he was a really smart dog, and of course there are claims that he was psychic and that he could predict things. In the original book, there was even a story about some researchers from the University of Missouri testing him. And, it's like, well, I don't know what their methodology was, because it can't have been great, or there would be more books about that. but I'm very eager to read this and see what a modern author makes of whatever historical record there is about Jem the Wonder Dog. So I got this from the library, Front Desk by Kelly Yang, and I am going to make this one do double duty. This is going to be contemporary. I think it's contemporary. I don't know. I don't think there are any ghosts or anything, so this should count as contemporary. And also there's a prompt, how exactly is it worded? I think it's either set in Asia or featuring an Asian main character. The protagonist is 10-year-old Mia Tang, and she has a lot of secrets. I'm wanting to say she's Chinese American. I think she was born in China, and the main character was born in China and immigrated to America. This sounded really interesting, and I have the large print edition, so it's kind of thick, but it is large print, so it should go pretty fast. Okay, so I have Pony from the library, and that's by R.J. Palacio. I've heard it pronounced Palacio. I would have pronounced it Palacio, but I do believe that it's important to pronounce things correctly, but on BookTube, I never know who actually knows if they're pronouncing something correctly. Like Tamara Pierce. There are a lot of people who think that they're pronouncing her name correctly when they pronounce it Tamora. But it's not pronounced Tamora, but how would they know that unless they've actually been in an audience where she says, no, my name is pronounced Tamara. So, I mean, yeah, there you go. That is the author's name. And that is the group read. And I was going to make Front Desk do double duty, and also be the contemporary read. However, I did find on Hoopla, it just kind of popped up, and I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. I mean, well, it's The Secret of the Skeleton Key by Penny Warner, and it's the first book in the Codebusters Club series. And so that, even though it's obviously I am not the intended audience for that's just catnip for me, I downloaded that, and that appears to be a contemporary middle grade novel. So that's my contemporary. So there you have my official stack for middle grade March. And now my unofficial reads. These are, okay, so we already talked a little bit about Fair Weather, that, yeah, it does not count for anything, but it's middle grade and I want to read it, so I'm adding it to my stack. And then I saw this in the bookstore, and I think it's middle grade. I honestly don't know. I saw this and said, I must have that. So I have it. And it's V.E. Schwab. It used to be that V.E. Schwab was the name she used for publishing her adult fiction, and she used Victoria Schwab for her young adult and middle grade fiction. But she has changed, and now she's just bringing everything together under V.E. Schwab. So let's see what this says. It does not tell me. So I don't know for absolute certain that this is middle grade. But we'll find out. This is actually for Strange Worlds Book Club, but I remember reading at least one of these stories when I was in middle school. Yeah, I think I was like 11 when I read it, so I would call this middle grade. This is The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury, classic science fiction. And this obviously was from a classroom. And there's much underlining, and yeah. And circling in Sharpie, so this was a school assignment of some sort. And yeah. So I'm calling this middle grade. It probably doesn't count for anything on the list, but I need to read this. So there's my new stack. So I will link some information below, and by the time this goes up, the month will be in full swing, but it's never too late to start reading books for a readathon. So let me know if you're doing middle grade March and what are you reading. Let me know in the comments below. And in the meantime, please like, subscribe, and see you around.